What's up, everyone? Kevin Allen here, and today I'm going to do my best to bring you a really quick video to introduce the MLB 2019 season to DFS Army members, talk about our coverage, let you know what we have going on for it, because a lot of times there's so much going on, give you an intro on how to play it, a little bit of how to use the optimizer. Not going to get too crazy detail or in depth here, but more I want to kind of go over the general range of tools that we have for you guys to help you kick ass this season. And it's Friday, day 2 of MLB, and I just had to show the winning lineups page because day 1 was a success. I mean, you've got just post after post of members kicking ass, taking names, great wins, really solid results. First place. Really great stuff. So congratulations to everybody on yesterday's domination. And the main point of this video, though, is to kind of go through all of the tools that we have here at DFS Army to help you crush MLB. Now, we've got a massive tutorial, and I just tabbed over to the MLB Research Station, which is awesome. And we've got a massive tutorial going for this, kind of explaining a lot of these columns. But I like to let you guys know what I do and the things that I like to look at, because I'm not one to really get too crazy, diving deep with WOBAs and yakisobas and any of that stuff. I like to keep it simple. And I like when important metrics and ratings pop out. So what we're looking at right here is the MLB Research Station that we have set up for you guys. It's incredible, by the way. I advise everyone who likes to dive deep into stats to really kind of get a sense of what we have going on. This is just one tab for hitters. You have incredible amounts of information at your fingertips right here when you scroll over. So the question is, well, guys, I don't want to research all that shit. I got work to do. I got a job. I got my kids. I got my wife. I got obligations. I don't have time to dive in. Well, if you do have time to, everything's at your fingertips. But here's the quick references that I use. The #1 rating that I'm looking for, which essentially accounts for pitcher quality, hitter quality, lefties versus righties, swing, and all these great metrics. It all combines into one beautiful thing called the DFS Army grade. And this is the gold standard for how we're going to rank our players, and particularly for cash games. And we have a different approach for tournaments and GPPs, which I'll talk about in a second. But if I'm looking for individual player grades, right here, your DFS Army grade is the shit. Now, we have a couple of other ratings here. These are all proprietary, so internal ratings. But here you've got safety and upside players, safety being more cash type players. So you really want to try to match up safety with grade, all of these different approaches. What a safety is a guy who's not going to strike out, make contact a little more frequently, going to be a little more consistent of a player. Upside are players that, while, yeah, they might strike out a lot. I'm trying to think of player names that might suit upside but not much safety, but you know who they are. Guys who hit a lot of home runs, also strike out a lot. Here's one. So Chris Davis. Upside, but maybe not the safest player. You know, here's some others. You know, you've got JD Martinez. Upside, not as much safety. Or well, actually, I'm looking at the wrong column here. But, yeah, safety, let's call Renfroe, not as high, but he's got really good upside, and today he's rated really well. So I like to use this rating above all others to judge players. And then I like to look at, in particular, now those ratings are on the Domination Station as well, so you don't have to come here to see it. But when you look at that rating and you compare it against salary, that's really where a lot of the beauty comes from. So these player names are sorted by DFS Army rating, and yet here we go. If you look through, these aren't the highest rated player does not necessarily happen to be the most expensive player. Here you've got 2, 3, 4, 5 sub 3K players on Fanduel that are all ranked at the top today. We've got some cheaper DraftKings players as well in this list, 3,600, 3,900. So you don't automatically have to pay up massively to get the top rated players, which is something I really like and something I love about our rating system. Now, Those are designed to help you pick out individual players, but we have a lot more tools for that. But I want to jump over, still in the research station, before we move on to some of the other things, to starting pitchers. And my favorite way to rank starting pitchers, we have our grade as well, which is great. You can sort those. So you got your top guy here, and it will make its way down. One of the cool things I actually really like is good and bad. And what this is in essence telling, this is upside and downside. And the reason I like this measure is because if you look at the downside rating, there are certain players, for example, that pop up on both of them, on both sides. Now this guy, this is a guy that's terrible, right? But he's got a 30, he's got a 2.5 Army grade. Like, I don't know who he is, but if he's new or what the story is, but terrible pitcher. But this one interests me the most. Where do you find a GPP play? Matt Shoemaker has both characteristics of a high upside pitcher, but also of a pitcher that gets crushed. Now, without getting into the detail of what goes into these measures, and Benjamin, CG, some of the other guys who create this sheet can help much more with that. But it's very important to note that the measure is cool because it can identify certain spots where a player can have both massive upside and high downside, which makes for interesting tournament plays. Whereas, my cash terrible pitcher play might be something different. But Matthew Boyd, for example, he's got the highest downside of any pitcher on the slate today. Good to attack in stacks against in GPPs, even though his upside is also decent, right? So he's playable, I guess, as your starting pitcher, but more exciting potentially to stack a team against him, because I guess what that means is when he is bad, he is very bad. Okay, so that's a couple of tools within the research station. There's a lot more going on here. I'm not going to go through every single component. You've got a ballpark rating page here. You've got certain trends that you can look at here. Again, I don't want to go through every single detail here because that's not the point of this video. All right, let's move on to some other tools that we have going on for the 2019 season. And one of my favorites is our coach's notes. We've brought the concept of coach's notes across now to MLB as well, and this we do now for every sport: MMA, NASCAR, NBA. After so many years of doing this, we found this is the best way to deliver information in the most clear, comprehensive way. So what's going on with the coach's notes? Well, you've got a pitching section. Each pro that's on that particular day is focusing on one side. So you got this today, it's Keg on DraftKings. You've got Chop on Fanduel. You've got Matt on Fanduel. You've got Sniper on DraftKings. So you've got 4 coaches putting together their best plays, their favorite play. Each one's going to be a little different. There's my boy Schumacher. All right, you've got upside and downside. You can stack against him, but he's also usable. But my point is, here we go. So each coach will break out their pitching plays. They'll give you their exposures, how confident they are as far as a rating, and we can look at this really in-depth notes. Here are your catcher ratings, every single player. Here are your core players that this coach, Keg, has outlined. And down here you have a section for stacks, right? So here are teams to potentially stack in tournaments with stack exposures. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a second as we get over to the Domination Station. But this is a really easy, just quick look over. There's some reasoning behind it. Hey, we can start the Cardinals offense against Freddie Peralta, and here's some reasons why. GPP, cash games, all that good stuff. It's day 2. I mean, this guy had a terrible rating. That might be, again, because that's a new pitcher in the game. I don't know. But, yeah, stack against him. But I guess today, Keg's favorite stack is the Angels. Let's see. Chop has the same thing broken down. He's got all kinds of beautiful colors going on this sheet with core players listed in blue. And you've got all these nice stacks. I guess light green is GPP only specials. Here is his favorite stack the Padres, right? So I get to go through each coach and kind of get a sense of who their favorite players are, who their core kind of cash players are, and who they want to stack today. So you have a lot of ways to go about it. If you don't really like looking at the research station and looking through a bunch of statistics and, just rely on the coaches. They're looking at this stuff and coming up with their plays. But the power is in your hands. In DFS Army, no one has a tool like this. I promise you. It does not exist. No one has this stuff. So as deep as you want to dive into these statistics, like I said, there's an hour-and-a-half video explaining what every column header does and is and the reasons you need to look at it. You can go through all of that. It goes all the way through different stacking options and whatnot. All right, now moving on to the Domination Station, because I'm getting a lot of questions about how should I do a single entry, how should I do cash games, how should I do tournaments, what's the approach? And realistically for me, MLB is the most dramatic sport in terms of the difference between cash games and tournament entries. In tournaments, if you're not stacking, you're dead. It's that simple. What is stacking? Stacking is when you go under the knowledge that players in MLB are extremely correlated in terms of offensive production, then we come up with the concept of stacking. Why do we do it? Well, if an offense is going to score 12 runs today, it's happening because a lot of guys are scoring. And it's not just one guy hitting 12 home runs. That's not how baseball works. So for a team to score 8 to 12 runs, what's happening is all of their players are doing really well. They're smashing the opposing pitcher. And the way you win a tournament is by stacking two teams that scored a lot of runs that day, and you fall onto those players, especially some lesser known players or some players that might not stand out automatically as standalone plays that get caught up in the scoring. Pitcher turns to a disaster. It's walking guys. He walks your guy. That guy gets hit in. He scores, right? Somebody behind him hits a home run or gets an RBI. That guy scores. What's the other benefit when a team is scoring a lot? They get extra at-bats for their hitters, because when you score 12 runs, your guys are getting, 6 or 7 at-bats in that game because you're fucking scoring all these runs. So that is the secondary benefit of stacking teams. Now, let's take a look at our MLB Domination Station, your optimizer, which gives you the power to do it all at your fingertips. And I'm going to go through a couple of beautiful features that we have going on here. Now, number one, DFS Army grades next to every player, next to every pitcher. That's really sweet. Right, so without having to tab over to the Domination Station, I can take a look. I can sort by grade. Here we go. So our top-rated catcher, Buster Posey. Our top-rated first baseman, Will Myers. It's all right there. Now, I like to look at both the grade and the value reading and match them up. Like this guy, Profar, he's got a great grade. He's got a really nice value rating. He's not super expensive. That's a guy that you might use in a cash game. Matt Carpenter, obvious cash play. Top guy, decent. It's expensive. He's got a decent value rating, but he's got this great DFS Army rating. Your best value Army rating combo is going to be Justin Turner. He's got a high projection and a lower price. Here's one I like, Brandon Drury, 73, but 2.5. You get him for cheap. So I always start my cash game approach with my pitchers. I'm really trying to nail down my two favorite pitchers, and I might do that again by looking at coaches' notes and being like, all right, here are two guys that Matt loves, and here's his two favorites, Gerrit Cole and Joey Lucchesi. I might read this reasoning behind it and either roll with that guy. Here's another 5-star player. So you've got 1, 2, 3 potential really high-end plays, all in or core type plays, and then of course these other ones. So looks like today Gerrit Cole is the consensus cash guy. Okay. Here's some of these names that we saw before. Buster Posey, the highest ranked player. Now it's interesting, Lucchesi is a top-ranked pitcher, and the guy he's facing is a top-ranked hitter, but hey, that's how it goes. You choose one or the other, or play one against the other. But looks like today Gerrit Cole, according to Matt, is the top pitcher. Let's see who else agrees. Chapo, not as much. He likes Jack Flaherty. Okay, there you go. Lucchese's there too. Follow whoever you want, or you make your own decisions by jumping over to the research station, looking up starting pitcher matchups, and doing it how you want to do it. Who's got the highest grade? I don't know. Let's see. Looks like Cole has the highest grade. Looks like Robbie Ray, number 2. Looks like Flaherty, number 3. So you've got the grades right here. Got your value reading. This is probably the best combo of value and grade. It's going to be Robbie Ray, who, again, I don't know too much about these players, but there you go. Stands out. Early in the season, these will not be as accurate as they are, a few weeks in, and that's just statistics. We're going a lot early in the season by last year's statistics. What did that pitcher do last year? All right, so I've gone through your coach's notes. Got that for every game, top plays, top position players, values, all that good stuff, core plays. Great. Got suggested stacks. Let's go back to the Dom Station and say, all right, I want to run some tournaments. How can I do this? All right, I use controlled stacks for the most part. So that is my suggestion for most people to use. You can do random hitter stacks as well, which basically you just choose the percentage of each team that you want included up to 200%. So if I were to choose a 4-3 stack here, I'll show it on the random, and then I'll show on the hitter stack, and then I'll show it on the controlled. So the way this will work, let me jump over to coach's notes, and who are we looking at? Keg. So Keg likes the Angels 40%, Padres 30%, Cardinals 40%. So what did I say? Angels, Cardinals, Padres. Cardinals, Padres. That's 40, 80, 120. Now I got to fill it out. I want to try to get close to 200% total because we've got 2 stacks, so this would be controlling both of those. And the reason this is called random is because these teams are just going to be sort of grabbed and matched up against one another, I would say fairly arbitrarily, rather than specifying one a primary, one a secondary, which I'll explain in the next portion of the video. But all right, so we've got 120. Let me jump over back to the stack sheet and see who else might be of interest here. We've got, all right, let's do Toronto and Boston. I'm a big Boston guy, and Colorado. So let's do 20, 20, 20. Toronto, Boston, Colorado. Let's see if normally I like to leave a little bit of leeway. Boston, Colorado. Oh, I got them in there. So Toronto, 20. And I'm just going to lower the Padres to 30. I don't like to leave no room. Every now and again, you'll get a couple of unstacked lineups because of the math doesn't equal out. But let's see how this works out. We are looking at DraftKings right now. So we've set up a bunch of stacks. We always have to remember to at least reduce the max on a couple of pitchers here. And let's try making 25 lineups, 3 uniques, and we're making lineups. Now, most of these lineups should feature 2 teams stacked with a 4-3 split. So let's take a look. And there'll be 1 or 2. Sometimes they pop in unstacked, but 4-3 split. So we've got St. Louis, St. Louis, St. Louis, St. Louis. That's 4, and 3 Houston here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 St. Louis, and 1, 2, 3 Miami. So we're getting 4-3 stacks, and it's just pulling them based on here. We've got St. Louis, St. Louis, St. Louis. I guess St. Louis is it's a 3-person, and then Angels, Angels, Angels 4. 3-4 stack. So these are stacked lineups. Loves Jack Flaherty. Now you might say, well, I'm getting 90% Jack Flaherty. That's fucked up. I don't want that. Or 84% Robbie Ray. That's too much. Okay, let's control that. Now you can control the pitchers. Flaherty, where is he? So you might say, all right, I don't want 80% Flaherty. All right, let's limit him to 40%. Who's the other guy? Robbie Ray. Maybe I don't want 80% Robbie Ray. You can limit him. 50, right? We run it again. You can use optimal or tournament. I tend to use optimal mode for MLB. Tournament mode isn't as beneficial, if you understand how it works. Here's a guy, Mallex Smith, I'm getting 100% exposure to, right? He's got a very high projection. Oh no, I've got, here we go, 64% now, Mallex Smith, right? He's got a, who is this guy? Seattle. He's not even in one of my stacks. So he's this guy that's just probably really well projected. Let me check that. I always like to know why. So I go to all, and I sort by value to understand what's going on. All right? I bet we'll see Mallex Smith somewhere up here. Yeah, he's coming in at a 2.49 value rating, which is extremely high, and he's fairly cheap. And, you know, so you might say, well, I don't want 100% exposure to this guy, or 65%. That seems like a lot. Okay. How about 30? You could set total exposures wherever you want. There you go. 25 stacked lineups using the non-controlled randomized setting. Now, the way, again, this works is it's going to mix and match all of these teams to make sure that if I'm including Toronto, Colorado, Boston, all these, that they all face each other in our stacks. Because, again, the goal of stacking is to catch stacks of the 2 games that you think will score 7, 8, 9 runs for your team. So let's say St. Louis and Colorado are the 2 teams that score 12 runs today. And all these other teams do shit. But Colorado and St. Louis went crazy. So the goal would be to at least have a few of these 25 lineups where Colorado faces St. Louis, so we catch those incredible high upside offenses on the same lineup together. Again, this is a way to attack tournaments. We don't attack cash games this way. We're attacking tournaments this way because that is how you win a tournament. You get the 2 correct teams, high scoring, get their offenses in there, and hope that you get the right guys from those offenses, and that's how you win the monies, right? Now, let me just show a different version of our stacking, because this one is much less user control. It's just matching these teams up that you authorized against one another. And when you have gaps, in other words, if this isn't filled out to 200% total on a 2 stack, or you can even set up 4 or 5. I guess you know, DraftKings has 5-person stacks too. I think 3, 5, or 4, 4 are possibilities. But the more restrictive you are, again, the trickier it is, and the fewer settings you really should be hammering it with, the fewer max exposures. I saw somebody the other day try to set every exposure at 30%. That will not work, because what ends up happening, you should be doing your exposure maxes one at a time, because what ends up happening is if you do a 4-4 stack and you limit, you know, the first baseman from one team, and the other team doesn't have a player designated as a first baseman because, you know, some second baseman's playing first or some shit like that, which goes on all the time in baseball, you can't make the lineup because there's no one who's playing first base or second base, no one eligible. So you have to be careful with how restrictive you get. All right, let me show controlled stacking real quick and show you how this works. Now again, we have the same deal. Double stacking allowed. You choose the number of players for each team, except the difference is here we have a primary and a secondary. So you as the user are controlling which teams are your primary teams for your stacks and which are your secondary teams, meaning which ones you're going to mix in. So for simplification, I'm going to do 2 teams as primaries for this example. And let's look at, again, I'm going to jump back to Coach's notes, who are my 2 favorites here. I'm going to call it Angels and St. Louis. Again, not my personal thing, just looking at these notes today. So I'm going to set those up at 50% each. Now, here's an interesting factor. You can choose the players to allow in a stack, but be careful when doing this. In essence, what this is, I can choose to just allow a certain number of players from this team. The issue when you do that is, if you do too many limits, again, you will not have enough players to fill out the lineup because everybody has a designation of a base. And if I don't have enough outfielders on one side of the stack and the other side of the stack, it won't work out. So really what you might want to do is say, well, I don't want this Andrelton Simmons in any lineups. He fucking sucks. Or Peter Bourjos. He fucking sucks. So I might leave one guy out, right? I got 50% LAA. The other one was San Diego, right? So we're going to do San Diego, 50%. Okay? We've just set up our 4-man stack 1. Now let's do a 3-person stack 2. And we're going to choose a few teams here. Houston, 20%. I'm just doing this for the example purposes. I want you guys to understand how to do this. Boston, gotta get me some Boston, even in an example. All right, 20, 40, 50, 60, 70. Never exceed 100. I don't even like to go all the way to 100, so we'll go to 90. Leave 10% clean. Now, how this is going to work. Let's say I'm making 100 lineups for the purposes of this discussion. Okay? 50 of the lineups are going to have 4-player Angel stacks. The other 50 are going to have 4-player Padre stacks, right? Within each of those 50, 20% of them are going to be up against Houston stacks, 20% against Detroit, 30% against Boston, 20% against Toronto. So the way this is functioning is it is forcibly mixing your stack A to your stack B numbers equal to the percentage that you're asking for. So you'll get 20% of the 50 lineups with the Angels, or 10 of them with Houston. Now here's an extra little bonus. If I'm stacking these two guys as my primary teams, I also want them to face each other a little bit, because if these are my two favorite stacks, I don't want to have a situation where I did 100 lineups and never once did the Angels or Padres face one another. So let me add in Angels, 20%. Let me add San Diego, 20%. Now, I'm not actually sure if that will run that way. Yeah. So now, oh, this one I got to remove. Okay. And now you get the message. Total exposure in hitter stack 2 exceeds 100%. Please decrease. So the problem, of course, is we went to 20, 40, 70, 90, 110, 130. Can't do that. So we have to eliminate some of these to never exceed 100%. So we got 20, 40, 70, 90, 110. We'll reduce this to 20 and we'll just do it the old-fashioned way. And let's make lineups. Houston, LAA. There's a stack. Now you'll note that as these lineups are being built, these two pitchers are popping in at this massive rate. That's because we don't have tournament mode on, so they'll be together in most of these lineups. And I'm going to show you a little trick here in a second, but these two guys will be together in pretty much the first, 70% of lineups generated, and they won't show up. We don't want that. So in that case, as long as we're not overly constricting maxes on players themselves, we can switch to tournament mode, and now you'll get a more even distribution. And note that when you look at the pitcher, it's not, these two guys are not exceeding 50, 40, 50, 30%. It's spreading out exposures of these pitchers much more generously and much more evenly. So that is how tournament mode works. But again, tournament mode will not work if you start putting crazy 30% max exposures on every position player, because it will stop the tool's ability to actually create a full lineup with all of those restrictions. Hard to explain, but just don't do that. Okay. Final step. Let's say I want to make a cash lineup. I'm not using stacks. Should not be stacking in cash. So I disable all of this. And again, my preference is, hey, I want to go check out my coach's notes, who's core this week. I see a lot of cores, but they're very expensive. Well, Cole Calhoun, that's a reasonably priced guy. Here's some core plays. I'm looking for high exposure cash games off of the sheets that we get in. from our coaches, like, hey, who's a great all play, right? Here are some players. Here are some names. The biggest key to winning cash games in MLB is crushing your pitcher choice. So my first advice is be right about your pitcher, and then try to get these high upside, high floor value plays in at the positions, at the batting positions. But, you know, here, got a couple of big guys, but they're expensive cores. So you want to find value plays as well. And again, using the Domination Station, we want to look at the grades and look for players like at every base level. Can I get a cheap guy? Look at this. This is a great example. Do I want to pay 85.2 for an 8.04 in Will Myers? You get a good spot. But here I can 1,000 less get this, a similar rating and a similar projection. So this guy might be the guy. Or maybe something like this, also very similar, even better, a little cheaper. That's what we're looking for. Every position. As I'm making my cash lineup, I'm still using this for help, even though I'm leaning much more on my grades and things like that and values to pick these players out for a cash lineup. So, man, I hope I covered everything. This is just kind of a brief overview of DFS Army Tools for MLB for the 2019 season. We have some other things going on here. Anytime you're on the website, there's so many different things going on. Basic training, lots of videos here teaching how to do things. Here's your coach's notes. We've got a tier sheet. We've got a Carnage report. We've got the research station. You've got strategy videos and articles. You've got the starting lineups page, which is coming in a few days. MLB Tools tutorials you could see and learn about all of the tools. And oh my gosh, I forgot to mention the weather station. That's right. In DFS Army, we have a full-time weatherman. I mean, who else has this? We've got a full-time weather guy. The best in the business. Everybody who plays MLB knows how important rainouts are. That will fuck your lineups. So, jump in the Weather Channel. Jump in the Weather Channel. Check it out. MLB Weather. Jump on the Weather Station. It's right here. I was just doing that. Where is it? Here's our Weather Station. Delay risk, postponed risk, rating, air density. He's even going a little further than just giving you the rate. Looks like it had no problems today, right? But if there are risks of delays, it's all written out over here. This is updated regularly. There are some things about dense air and how that better or worse for home runs and whatnot. But most important, we have a live in-channel weather person, DFS Weather. This is your channel in our team Slack, where you can find out what the fuck is going on with the weather. Should I be concerned? Should I be avoiding certain games? Is this game dangerous? Should I avoid it in cash? If you are not checking the weather and you're playing MLB, you're doing it wrong. You must know if there's going to be rain delays. There's lots that goes on with that. That is one of the key factors. It's almost as insane as late-breaking scratches are for basketball. So, part of your membership includes a full-time weather coverage service. We don't fuck around. That's just MLB. Man, we got so much else going on right now. But that is your MLB. That's it for now. 30 minutes, quick overview, how to use DFS Army Tools for MLB in 2019. Good luck, everyone.